All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to part 2 of my conversation with Vanessa. So, I am so grateful to Vanessa for sharing such a difficult story and experience that she has gone through. But here she shares about all of the advocacy she's now doing for the sport to make it a better place. She is now a coach and she's a judge, and she is also pursuing her MBA now to hopefully one day open up her very own gym. So, here is the rest of her story.
I was doing a vault, and it's called a Yurchenko full, and it's where you do a round off onto the springboard, a back handspring onto the vault, and then you do a full twist off of the vault. And my coach was spotting me, or getting ready to catch me on my landing, and missed my arm, smacked my breast instead, and threw his hands up like, "Oh God!" Like, but didn't say anything about it. Wasn't a big deal. I knew it was an accident, and then he looks at me and says, "You didn't make that all the way around because you're way too fat to get it all the way around. Go to the treadmill right now and run the rest of practice." We had about 2 hours and 45 minutes left of practice. So
Oh my
I
gosh.
literally was on the treadmill. I got off twice. I got to go to the bathroom twice. And he would like walk by and say mean things. He's like, "Oh, like, are you still thinking about food?" Or, "Oh, like just awful things."
Oh
And I could
my.
see, like, obviously sweat was coming down me on the treadmill, but like my tears too were just, I was like silent sobbing, even though he could see my face and I was sobbing. Um, so I remember probably into hour 2 of being on that thing, thinking to myself, I don't care what I have to do to be 4'11" and skinny. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna like figure this out. Which is
Screw
obviously not
science,
logical
yeah.
thinking, like not logical at all. But I thought I don't care how many meals I need to get rid of. I don't care how many meals I need to skip. I'm gonna figure this out. So the end of practice comes. My dad comes and picks me up. I tell him what happened. It's also, you can tell physically something had happened. I was
Mm-hmm.
shaking, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I got pulled out pretty quickly after that and moved to a different gym, and was not coached by him anymore. But that was the day that my eating disorder started, and that was the day that my unhealthy relationship with food and my body grew to fruition. When I tweeted it and wrote about it, I had someone reply to me and said something along the lines of like, "I'm so sorry for you. That happened to me in the 80s."
Oh,
And that for me got me super emotional because I just felt so bad. Like, it's been going on for so long. It's just awful. It's so awful.
yeah.
Um, After all the Larry Nassar stuff came out, it was just kind of like, something has got to give here. Like, we cannot put a price tag on these kids to win gold medals if they're getting abused every day. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. So I'm
Wow.
gonna fight like hell for as long as I have to make sure that the sport does not go down the drain because of some sick, gross people.
Wow. I have chills just thinking about all of that. And I can't imagine going through an experience like that where this is someone, like you said, you've looked up to and was your coach and probably a mentor to you for so long. And you saw him as your gateway to your dream. And so you're like, okay, better believe everything he says. And how old were you when that one instance occurred?
I was 15 or 16.
You started down that dangerous road of a bad relationship with food and body image. How long did that last?
I had an eating disorder for about 5 years before I got help for it.
Wow.
Um, Eating disorders thrive in secrecy, and they thrive, you know, with people who can put on a front that they are okay. Um, and then behind closed doors, when they're alone, they treat themselves awfully. Like, that was me. That's what I was doing. And I felt like I lied and was dishonest about everything to try and hide this big secret, because I knew deep down it was wrong. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew deep down that the behavior wasn't correct, but it just, in my brain, I kept thinking, if I'm skinnier, if I lose 10 more pounds, my coach will like me and I'll be okay. I won't get screamed at every day. Or if I lose these 15 more pounds, or I skip this meal, I'll qualify to this competition. It's fine. Everything will be fine. I kept justifying by being like, okay, this next competition, after that, I'll be done. Okay, wait, nope, there's nationals, there's this, there's that. I've gotten to compete in Italy. Like, I just remember there were different competitions where I was like, just one more.
Wow.
One more of this. And, you know, I ended up getting 4 knee surgeries. I fully believe if I was completely nourished and healthy, that wouldn't have happened.
Wow.
I don't think I would have injured myself that much. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, eating disorders are something that typically thrive when a person feels like they've completely lost control. And nothing about my life was controlled by me at that point. I mean, my life was gymnastics. My life belonged to that coach. It felt like I was with him more than I was with my parents. And so everything he was telling me, I was hearing way more often than my parents telling me, you're beautiful, we love you, things like that. Like, I was hearing that way less than what I was getting from him. So it was a long road. It was a very long road.
Yeah. Yeah. And then not to mention the self-talk that we all get, that after you hear just people who are saying these nasty things, they don't realize how much that affects you on the inside. All of a sudden, your train of thoughts and your voice in your head is like repeating those same things. And we could either be our biggest supporter or our biggest critic. And sometimes when we go down that path, like, it's dangerous. And like you said, it started to affect you physically, which is pretty scary. So at what point did you feel ready to get help?
I don't think I ever really felt ready. At one point, it was basically I had no choice. Once, you know, my family and friends started figuring out what was going on, it wasn't really up to me anymore, which to this day, forever grateful. It's one of those things in the moment you're like, ugh, like, let me do what I want to do. But now looking back, I mean, living in the Carolina house, the treatment center I was in, saved my life 100%. I will go to the grave with that. If I did not move in there and live there for, I think it was around 11 months, I would not be here right now. The way that they pushed me out of my comfort zone to really learn that a lot of the things that I had been told my entire life were incorrect. That's a hard thing. I mean, they literally had to pretty much break down everything I'd ever been told and rewire my brain to tell me that that was wrong.
Wow.
And that eating is okay. And that, like, just little things that you don't think about are really hard for a person who has an eating disorder. Like, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner come every single day. That's 3 times a day to be triggered by something that is awful, makes you feel awful. So learning to look at a slice of pizza and be like, this is like really good. I love pizza. Pizza tastes good. Like, I couldn't even remember what things tasted like. I was so concerned with what it was going to do to my body.
Wow.
What was it going to do to my career? What was it going to do to, like, just everything, my weight, whatever. Nothing was ever just simple. It was never just about what the food was in front of me. It was like, how is this negatively going to impact me? So I just had to go through learning how to, what we call, fact check. I still do it to this day. Sometimes I still struggle. Fact checking with eating disorders is key. But the living in the treatment center, amazing. Saved my life for sure.
Wow. What is the fact checking specifically?
So fact checking is when, in an eating disorder sense anyways, when, I'll use the pizza example again because I used to cry about it. When a slice of pizza is in front of you and I'm telling myself, this pizza, like, I can't eat it. It's too greasy. I'm going to gain all this weight. I can't compete if I eat this pizza. I will not look the same if I eat this pizza. Just, you know, irrational eating disorder thoughts. We call them ED thoughts, flowing through. Fact checking is when you kind of sit there, you don't touch the food yet. You kind of go through your brain and you're like, okay, let's go through those sentences and tell, like, what is facts out of that? So, will this pizza kill me? No. Will it significantly impact my weight? No. Will it taste good? Yeah. Will I enjoy it? Yeah, probably. Like, you know, you have to kind of go through those things. And at the treatment center I was at, they had us do it out loud.
Wow.
at a table with other people who are going through the same thing. And it forced you to kind of realize that ed thoughts are irrational and they're
Mm-hmm.
there to tear you down. And I'm stronger than that. I don't need
Yeah.
that. And I remember it took me a couple months to get there.
Yeah.
Because when I first got there, I was like, I don't want to change for you people. I don't know who you are. And like, why are you making me paint and do yoga and go on mindfulness walks?
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I would kill to go on a mindfulness walk. Um, but it was, I mean, I say it was a great experience. It's always weird for me to describe it as a great experience because obviously it was hard work, but it was a great experience.
Wow. Wow, that's really interesting. And going into those thoughts, especially as an athlete and a human being, we all get those irrational thoughts. Like I've been getting a lot of them recently during the pandemic. And I was listening to this podcast they quoted Eckhart Tolle. I don't know. I'm not like that philosophical. I don't know these names, but he said, you are not your thoughts. And simple as that, you are not your thoughts. And in my head, I'm like, well, of course my thoughts are mine. Like they come from somewhere. They come within me. Like whatever I think, it's gotta be coming from somewhere. But that really helps to reinforce like, yes, there's a part of our brain that digs up some stuff that just doesn't make sense, but we tell ourselves it does, those irrational thoughts. And then you spiral and then it just takes you down this deep, dark path. And like you said, to get over that, it's like rewiring your brain. And so as athletes who have heard the same thing for years as a kid, it takes a lot of work to get over that and get through. I think get over that is not even the right phrase. It's just to work through it and come out the other side. And so I see the amazing work that you've done with yourself. It's really inspiring. So I think a lot of people are going to relate to that sort of experience, those sorts of thoughts as an athlete, just looking at a piece of pizza or just another scoop of pasta. And you're just like, oh, but I need this to fuel. But wait, there's so many calories. But wait, I don't know if this is going to hurt me or help me. So I mean, all the athletes I've spoken to recently about eating disorders and relationships with food have a very similar theme. Because in your head, you're like, oh, well, I'm doing this to help me to be a better performer and competitor, but it's damaging in the long run. So,
It's so damaging. And those ed thoughts can lead to some really scary places. I've been to those scary places. And I've done a couple of speaking engagements about my time in eating disorder treatment. And the biggest question I always get asked about eating disorder treatment is, was it worth it? Was it worth putting my life on pause to go live somewhere with, I think we had 13 other girls who had eating disorders. And like, was it worth it? The money, the time, you're not making any money. Obviously you're not working. You know, there's so many factors that go through people's heads. And I always say, you will not believe the amount of good it did just to give up a little bit of control, just a little bit, and let people help you and let other people in. And it just, like I just said, it just changed my life once I reached that point of being like, it's okay for me to let people help me.
yeah.
I do not need to essentially kill myself over what one awful man is saying. I don't need, he does not deserve that.
Yes.
So letting go of that little bit of control made so much difference. Just
Wow.
so much difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing a common theme here with a lot of the tough times you've gone through, but being surrounded by the right people and support system has made all the difference. So I think that's such an
I'm
important.
truly blessed. Truly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important theme to remember just in life. And it's really hard right now in the pandemic when we really can't be around a lot of people. And I know it's taking a toll on a lot of people's mental health. And so just doing whatever you can to try to surround yourself with people and just remind yourself like you've got a good support system. You don't have to do all of this alone, which is hard to do sometimes, especially as athletes. You want to put your head down and grind and get it done. Especially probably for a sport where you are an individual normally. Like, yes, there's a team aspect of it, but for the most part, you're working as an individual. So I'm curious if that kind of, had an effect on the way that you experienced other things in life, wanting to do it kind of on your own.
That part and the chasing perfection
Mm.
part. In most sports, like, you're aiming for a basket or kicking a soccer, like, kicking in the goal, like, just very straightforward. But in gymnastics, you're literally chasing perfection. That's what you're doing. And, I think where a lot of gymnastics facilities missed the mark, and I'm hoping when I open my own gym to focus on this more, is that gymnasts are only gymnasts for such a short period of time. This is not a sport where they could be a Tom Brady age and go do
That's so
a
true.
vault like at 43 years old and still make a living. Like,
Yeah.
the importance of the sport for me, and when I open my own gym, I'm hoping to just make sure I drill this into every person that would walk in, is just that the goal here is to make happy, healthy adults through this sport. That is always going to be my goal, because I'm an adult much longer than I'm going to be a gymnast for.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we use this sport, which is so amazing and has so many great qualities and so many great things that can be translated into being an adult? Like, how can we translate that into when these kids are, kids and growing up in this gym? How can I contribute to them being good adults and happy adults and have, just simple things like education and knowledge of things of like mental health. Like, I really want to have a sports psychologist on my team. That's really important to me. Giving these kids knowledge about mental health and coping mechanisms for fear and managing it. Just different things like that, I think, is where a couple of gyms have just missed the mark. It was all about, how are we going to make it to nationals this year? How are we going to get a gold medal this year? That's great as a goal, but I think you're missing the big picture. And the big picture is, this is a small blip of time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain comments you can make to these young kids and these young teenagers, because they're so impressionable, that will stick with them for the rest of their lives. And I'm living proof of that. It is still something I work through every single day. Now I'm much better at coping with it, and I'm getting to a point where I love the skin I'm in. But that obviously came with some blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Cause I mean, I wanted to ask you, about your advocacy for the sport now, but you just painted a really beautiful picture of, this is how we can make change. And you made a great point, how, especially a sport like this, that you're playing it in a tiny window of time if you look at the grand scheme of your life, but that is a time in your life where you are really impressionable. Fancy word that you used. I think it's the perfect word.
Yes.
But those experiences are kind of laying the groundwork for how you view yourself as a human being. And I think that us and some of the guests I've had are at this age where we're a little bit out of our career, a few years or so out of our career, and we're realizing that sports really do mold you and give you skills for professional life and for social life, but stuff we were learning while we were playing sports we didn't realize at the time. So, and some positive, some negative, like you said. So it's really inspiring to hear your plans for the future, this dream that you have. Now you're pursuing an MBA while you're working these crazy hour weeks, which is really cool though, because you're working towards this goal of, like you said, trying to change the sport.
It's worth it. I mean, even thinking about it right now, if I think of an idea for my future gym, I have a Microsoft Word document on my computer. I just type it in. It is now 7 pages long with just ideas.
That's amazing.
This is a dream I definitely plan on achieving, and I just want to be able to give back to as many kids as I can. I don't want to sit here and throw myself a pity party by any means, but I think that some of these things could have been avoided. I'm going to fight everything just to be able to help make sure that this sport does not go down the drain and continue to have these types of lasting impacts.
Yeah.
kids.
I think a common theme that I've been trying to reinforce with this podcast is something that we thought that we wanted to do for the rest of our lives might not be what we're actually pursuing now, but it's the experiences that we've had throughout our life that are these building blocks to leading you to a place that now you have this dream of opening a gym, or some other experiences that led you down a path that you never thought you would be going down. And a question that I meant to ask early on was like, when you were younger, what you want to be when you grow up? What was your dream job when you were little?
You're gonna laugh. My dream job when I was little, or not little, I guess preteen. I wanted to be the next Juliana Rancic so bad. I just wanted to talk about Lindsay Lohan and like on E News and just have a time. Yes. And so I loved watching E News and then wear all these like fancy dresses and talk about things. And I was like, do these things matter? Like, this is so interesting. So that was my first career goal. I remember I wanted to be on E News. That's all I wanted to do. Then when I started coaching, I fell in love with it. And then I kind of just wanted to challenge myself a bit more. I remember submitting the ESPN application being like, no one's probably going to see this. Click. Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are 2 years later working on game day.
You shot your shot. You shot your shot hard. That's awesome. See, that's so cool. I mean, it's just important that for people to remember, like, if you're at a place where you have no idea what you want to do with your life, sometimes I feel that way. Think back to your experiences, good and bad, and how those contributed to what you feel is important in life. And that can kind of steer you a certain direction. And so it's cool that you found that direction right now. So you're coaching, you are a judge, which I'm sure that's a position where, I don't know if you feel like you can make some change in that role as well as coaching. What's it like to be a judge?
The biggest thing for being a judge right now is being a young judge. For anyone who knows the sport, we've got women who have walkers going out there that judged me when I was younger, that recognized me immediately. USA Gymnastics has been like trying to get younger judges in. I think that part's just really cool. I got to experience being like one of the first people in their 20s to get to judging a higher level. And it was just a really cool accomplishment. There's not much change to be made really as a judge other than I am a, person of color sitting there, which is not, gymnastics is not really filled with that many people of color. So I feel like I'm just trailblazing sitting at the table.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm at the table. That's all that matters.
Get your seat at the table and add some more. That is really cool. Okay. Well, I think I just want to finish up with what would your advice be to a young girl? I mean, from frickin' age 6 through their teens to now, who are struggling with maybe body image issues or food related issues contributed by their sport. What's your advice to them for someone going through something like that?
My advice for someone going through something similar that I did, which is just not feeling happy with the skin that you're in. The biggest advice I can give, and this sounds so corny, but tell someone you care about. Get another perspective on the situation. Sometimes, it can be something you're manifesting in your brain that you think to be true and it might not, or it could be a miscommunication, or it could be what I was going through and I was just being really secretive about it and not being completely honest. I would just search for that person, whether it be a teacher at school or, your mom or dad or your aunt, whoever it is, someone who cares about you and loves you unconditionally. Release some control, talk about it, own it, and know that everything will be okay. There will be solutions for you moving forward once you kind of just open your heart to possibly getting some help. A big part of why I didn't get help is because I always felt like I was such a burden and I didn't want to make other people feel any sort of way because of what I was going through. I just realized that I never feel that way when people come to me and talk to me about what's going on in their life. Like, I want to be able to help. And I think most people feel that same way. So I would just really urge anyone to just reach out to someone that you trust and get another perspective on whatever your situation is, or if you're going through a hard time, and see what they say, and see what can be done. That would be my advice.
Wow, I'm so inspired. Well, thank you so much for taking the time on this lovely Monday evening and sharing your story. I know you've got crazy busy days during this time, so thank you so much for sharing your story and all your wisdom and your experiences, because I know there's definitely someone out there that's going through something like this, and we'll take a lot out of your advice. So thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we were able to reunite.
All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning into my conversation with Vanessa. I'm really inspired by her story and all of her messages, and I hope you are too. So thanks so much for tuning in, and thank you so much to Vanessa for sharing her story. All right, until next time.